The cat's got my tongue. I barely slept that night from worrying. I was anxious all night and even more so as daybreak approached. I got out from under the covers and tiptoed around the room. I thought about opening the window and looking out at the autumn sky, but I did not. I was afraid the uncaring wind would blow in a leaf from its mother's bough, and I would catch it in my hands. What would I do with a dead leaf in my hands? Grandma Zahia hadn't taught me to wash dead leaves. "It is fine," Auntie Hoda had said earlier that day as she secured the nappy over her baby's tawny thighs. "There's no shame in work." Auntie Fariam, who lived nearby, disagreed. "There most certainly is. I bear responsibility for Bert. How can I live with the shame? My brother's daughter is working in a place where women strip off and expose themselves to each other." "The brother you are talking about," Mum interjected, "has been in prison for 5 years, and we still haven't seen a single penny from you." Auntie Mariam laughed mischievously as she put her cup of tea down on the table and got up to leave. "You think you and your daughter are not getting your dues? You are getting my brother's benefits from the Ministry for Prisoners, not to mention the charity that falls into your lap while you sit around at home. There are many hands ready to help. But I suppose a leopard never changes its spots." I broke into the conversation. "Auntie, this job is something I want to do, not Mum." My aunt ignored me as if I were speaking in sign language behind her back, gesturing in a silent cartoon. I suspected her leopard comment was a dig at Grandma Zahia, which clearly annoyed Mum. When my aunt left the room, Mum slammed the door after her. Trees for the absentees. My younger siblings carried on playing, entirely indifferent to this conversation, which did not once or twice appear on the television. Concerned for them, after all, Said was pushing his train along the floor, stopping every now and then for a choo-choo to emerge from his mouth, obviously not from the train. No black smoke came out of Said's mouth or from his stupid train. It was nothing like a real train, which neither of us had ever seen in real life. Only Sasan was combing her doll's hair and nodding to a silent rhythm. I do not know why I suppose she was dancing to a drum beat in her head. Nahil was standing at the bathroom door, wrapping her hair in a towel and singing a Nancy Ajram song. "What is on your mind, Habibi? And why do not you speak to me?" But that was the day before. The next morning, Mum and I were crossing the road to catch the minibus. The city was crowded with people. I was tense and getting more so. Everyone around me, all these strangers, seemed to know where they were going. Even Mum was like a stranger who knew her way. That thing happened to me. That can happen even with the people closest to us when you find yourself in a strange place. An unfamiliar path leads to the heart of the matter. His heart was heavy. Connections were certain. Talking won't stop the relationship suddenly feels different when it does happen, I once told Fathia. When I see my father behind bars, it is like it is a shadow of a man in prison, and we have some kind of connection to him, but it is not clear what it is. Is the connection just the act of visiting him now and then? As far as he is concerned, we are just people who come and see him, some young people, a woman, and children and a wife. And then what? When he gets out and comes over to play with us, will our relationship still be based on the verb to visit? Then our house will become a prison too. My mom also once said, Abu Mansur never left the house again after he was released from prison. His house became his prison. Mom and I were linked in that moment by a connection based on the verb to walk. It felt like we were two women walking alongside each other without knowing why. True, my mom was maintaining a certain distance between us, and whenever we were separated by any further, she would look sideways or behind her to check. I had not gotten lost, but I felt as though she was just a woman trying to take me somewhere safely, as though all her mind was, when will I be able to get rid of? A woman is like a guide in the desert. This was her role in the desert that was going off the city. And Pete, was I the stubborn camel that had chosen its destination and headed deep into the desert? It seemed like I had strayed much further than I should have. I remembered Mum's reaction the first time I broached the idea of looking for work. "Zahia," I huffed, "if you won't let me get my own job, I do not know why you ever let me to work with Grandma." "What does Grandma Zahia have to do with it?" Mum shouted back. "Do you have to bring Grandma Zahia into it every time something does not work out as you want?" "She does have something to do with it, Mum." "Do you know why?" "Because finally the day has come when Philistia will no longer be blind." Fear entered her voice. "Who said anything about being blind?" "God forbid." "Mum, I want to work," I said as persuasively as I could. "I want to find a job for 2 or 3 days a week. Studying at AI Quds Open University means it is flexible. I do not need to go there every day." To cat's tongue. Mum had been as displeased about the idea of me studying at Al Quds Open University as she was now about the idea of me getting a job. She had wanted me to enroll at An Najah, the largest university in Palestine, like my cousin, so I could come home at the same time as her and ideally dress the same as her and have the same handbag, though perhaps in a different color or shoes with higher heels. Just to prove that I had a father who spent money on me like Auntie Miriam's daughter. It occurred to me then that mothers also have their reasons for acting like stroppy teenagers. Sometimes I felt like I had a mother who acted like my daughter, and a father to whom I wrote as if he were a distant pen friend I could not visit, in a context where it was not even easy to have a friendship between someone male and someone female in the first place. This was my mum leading me across the city. Mum and me, her daughter, somehow playing our roles as expertly as we could. This was the tension that had built up over a night of worrying, of tossing and turning on my pillow, mounting fear and anxiety, leaving me breathless. I thought of screaming, "I want to go back!" I have changed my mind. Trees for the absentees. Auntie Miriam had said it was a genuine attempt. In that second, I realized that everything that a loving aunt could do was to protect me, her brother's daughter, from making a decision that betrayed mother. It seemed to me that my lack of experience motivated her desire to resist my auntie's constant meddling in her life, especially since Dad was sent to prison. It made her feel obligated to support me in my decision. Forced to let me go, she was all of a sudden ready to throw me to an unknown fate among people I did not know in a huge, strange city. I had almost completely lost confidence in my decision. After all, for all my attempts to show how grown-up I was just a girl with no idea about life who woke up one day and said, "I will carry my own light." And now there was no choice but to become lost in this great, harsh city, even though I still wanted to hang on to the hem of Mum's dress or cling to her neck. On my way back home, I would not have her dress or her neck to cling on to. When we got there, she was going to leave me and go. Mum continued on her way. She crossed with me from one street to another, amid strangers walking in a hurry, some of them smiling and laughing, others. The cats got my thoughts, and gloomy were those gloomy ones going anywhere new and strange like me? Where they might become an easy morsel in the mouth of a thing I knew nothing about. I imagined they were heading to the hammam like me, and I would not have been surprised if I found that some of them had been there before me and had already begun their work of scrubbing naked, unresisting bodies. I thought Nablus, "What a heartless city you are!" A place you do not know, I thought, is no different from a dead creature, grotesque and putrid with a smell that carries a reminder of all your old fears. Mum gripped me by the hand and stepped onto the minibus. My feet followed hers. She asked a girl with wild hair flowing down her back about the fare. Her hand reached for her purse from the bag I was carrying for her. Mum tapped on the driver's shoulder and dropped the shekels into his hand. And from time to time, she reminded him where we wanted to get off, as close as possible to the market. Black thoughts were battling in my head as the bus passed landscapes on both sides of a long road that I wished would never end. When Mum squeezed my hand, I felt it shatter like glass, shards of my hand penetrating into her flesh. Trees for the absentees. Should I say to Fathia, "Damn it, I wish you had seen that advertisement and told me about it. But I was the one who had asked her to look for a job for me. I remembered how she had knocked on the dry kitchen door whispering, "I have found a job for you." The advertisement. "It is perfect for you." She went on, "And your grandma Zahia is the one who sent it to you from up there." Fathia gestured upwards with her head as she said that, her eyes looking up as though she were searching for someone on the kitchen ceiling that evening, and pulled me by the hand. She smiled as she said it, but I was worried Mum would overhear her talking so loudly. "Shh, Fathia, for goodness sake," I said, putting my hand. "Now, you are going to show me how clever we are," said Mum encouragingly, bringing me back from my thoughts. We had arrived. When I asked her how I would get back, she added, "He who asks for help never loses his way." I walked behind her as we went through the door of the hammam, then up 3 steps. I tugged her shoulder for her to wait for me, but she did not turn to face me. She just stopped. The young man who was sitting behind the wooden screen at the entrance peered at me. He observed Mum's silence, and he observed my hand on her arm as I pulled her gently aside. My feeling of being lost seemed inescapable that autumn morning. But wasn't that what I had wanted? "Rest assured," Mum said to the manager, Walid, patting her shoulder as they came to the end of a long conversation. "My daughter can be trusted to keep her mouth shut." "She is quiet, is not she?" commented Walid. "Has the cat got her tongue?" Walid seemed to be looking for a light-hearted parting comment with which to end her conversation with my mum, so she could get back to work. Mum laughed, but I hid behind her back. How did Walid know what everyone had said about me my whole life? Ever since I was a little girl, whether it was at home, at school, or with my friends, I had always been teased for being so quiet, and they would say the cat had got my tongue. When we studied idioms in year 10, I realized it was the perfect example of a descriptive metaphor. The image of someone who says very little, who does not feel the desire to respond to everything that is going on around them, or even what is being addressed to them. Trees for the absentees. She is a girl of few words, Mum confirmed, and she is a model of discretion. Can turn a blind eye, a skill she inherited from her grandma Laha. Mum was a smooth talker like Fathia, and every bit as good at selecting her words and steering the conversation. Mentioning my grandma gave me the opportunity to start telling Walid about Grandma Zahia's historical role in the life of the village, about how she had been responsible for washing all the women and babies when they passed from this world, and the newborns when they entered it for many long years, before she herself passed into the merciful embrace of Allah at the age of 87. Yet she had not found anyone to carry on her role, and there was no one to wash her own corpse, except her 14-year-old granddaughter, Philistia, who had boldly stepped up to the task amid a torrent of prayers for the soul of the deceased from female relatives, young and old, beseeching God to protect her in the afterlife, just as she had protected their loved ones in this world. I still remember how the women watched that day, saying, "MashaAllah, what a strong heart he has!" Stronger than her mother. Look at her mother's hands trembling. The cat has got my tongue, ! They added, period. Look at her aunt, crying like a baby, hanging her head between her shoulders, her hands shaking. Mum moved the water jug around directly over my hands to spread the water over Grandma's body. Her skin was soft, and it seemed as if green veins were trying to sprout up through it. She was no different in her dead body from how she was when she was alive. She seemed like a sleeping grandmother, surrounded by rowdy children who ought to lower their voices so they do not wake her up. I imagined that everything I was doing was a role assigned to me in a recurring dream that constantly came to me in my sleep. Ever since Grandma Zahia had begun to take me with her round the houses to wash a woman who had died, or a newborn child freshly emerged into life, I had begun to dream almost every day of naked flesh, stretched out, and of me pouring water onto the body from a metal jug. And as time went by, the water flowing from the spout of the jug transformed into a cascading waterfall or a spring where water dripped from a crack in the rock, like tears emerging between the eyelashes of a closed eye. I started to dream of old women dancing with newborn babies in the cascading water, all naked. And my task, together with Grandma Zahia, was to oversee this ritual dance of babies and grown women. And as an acknowledgement that no one can refute, Mum added, for 70 years, it was in Grandma Zahia's hands that the people of Deir Sabra made the transitions of fate, passing into life or from life to death. And this is what every member of the village will testify about her. But what the people of Deir Sabra might have forgotten is that it was her granddaughter Philistia who assisted her when her own fate led her from life into death.